Good morning, folks. It is Tuesday the 13th of November 2018 here in Christchurch, New Zealand. This is actually a summer top that my mum knitted for me, so that's very nice. The reason for this video is on Friday in England, so it came on the internet Saturday in New Zealand, a court case was reported, which, to my mind, is a serious miscarriage of justice. Now, to be fair, I wasn't in the courtroom. I didn't hear, testimony that would have gone on for many hours of a day and quite likely several days. But as it's been reported, it seems quite clear that a severe miscarriage of justice has happened. I felt it was worthy of typing up a blog post, which I did, put on my blog on Saturday, and I've tweaked the wording a little bit here and there ever since. And then yesterday, an American website, a LGBT rainbow kind of website, picked up the story virtually word for word and ran it, and then the comments listed under that story, I think many people also, well, I disagree with their opinions. So I wanted to give my take on it. Now, it's on my blog, but I realise only some people read that, and there could be some people, perhaps visually impaired people, who may not read it. So this is this is a talking head, but with a few hand movements. So there'll be some hand movements, but this is at least accessible if people were perhaps of limited vision and had difficulty reading the blog. I apologise in advance. I'll have to look slightly away from the camera as I'm reading it for the most part, as I've got it displaying on the screen here. So I'll just turn the screens over. And I will need to scroll the mouse from time to time. The article starts, "Bald-headed man with beard given 15 years jail for impersonating a pretty woman, as nobody noticed at the time, apparently." Okay, that's a long headline. Well, it seems as if the lunatics really have taken over the asylum in the British court system. It certainly could not be called a justice system after the most recent crazy decision. Duarte Xavier was just sentenced to 15 years in jail by Judge Michael Hunter in the Kingston Crown Court in England. He had used several online and smartphone-based dating apps, including but not limited to Tinder. He posted a picture of a pretty girl and subsequently arranged several meetups. Some dates, we were told, took place in his flat, and some at a local park. He asked the men who were meeting with him to wear a blindfold, and they all agreed. The article does not make it clear exactly how this was done. That is, did the men just wander around in a park aimlessly, already wearing a blindfold? Did they go right up the door of the apartment or flat and then knock and affix a blindfold before knocking and entering? We do not know. No such details are given. The dates apparently proceeded, as internet dates often do, and subsequently they engaged in some form of sexual activity. Now, it's never made clear exactly what form the sexual activity, or even the date itself, took. Because incredible though it may seem, none of the four male victims ever spoke with Duarte Xavier, or they would have heard his voice, male voice, nor did they kiss him or caress or hug with him. Otherwise they would have noticed that instead of the pretty long-haired woman in the online dating profile, their date was with a bald dude with a full beard and sideburns. Now, it's true that his beard was not quite as large as an Amish elder's or Santa Claus's, but he's still sporting a full beard. The offending only came to light when some of the men chose to remove the blindfold while a sex act was taking place or just afterwards. It was then they suddenly discovered that Duarte didn't look much like the photo in the online dating app and decided to press charges. That is why Duarte Xavier was arrested, then released on bail several times, during which intervening periods he engaged in more dates with more men. Now, there is no denying that Duarte Xavier is a bit of a scumbag and violated the terms and conditions of online dating apps by uploading photos that were not himself. But I fear the court proceedings have taken a decidedly wrong path. And there's a quote here from the Daily Mail in England. Xavier of Wandsworth, southwest London, was found guilty of 6 counts of causing a person to engage in sexual activity without consent in October following a trial. End quote. Well, I certainly hope that, scumbag that he is, he appeals this and gets completely exonerated. Time for a cough. I'll scroll while I'm here. Let us be very, very clear. The sexual activity was 100% consenting, and the 4 men involved, referred to as heterosexual males, now claiming PTSD and probably seeking state-funded compensation payouts, I dare say, consented willingly to being blindfolded before and during their sexual encounters. And at no time did they conduct any reasonable due diligence test on their dating partner. There was no kissing, no hugging, no caressing, no listening to her voice. For fuck's sake alive, they didn't even bother taking off the blindfold to see what she looked like before commencing to engage in sexual activity. So just what on earth did their dates actually consist of? Time for a sip of water, I think. Now, there are no details given regarding what the sexual activity was, so the public at large will just have to guess, I guess. This factor alone seems to be... do pardon me. This factor alone seems to be leaving the public record wanting. So for the benefit of future historians, looking back in decades to come, when social situations may be quite different, I will suggest that it was probably not just toe-sucking and painting ancient Greek love poems on a partner's bare back, but more likely the activity described as fellatio. However, we can only guess. Perhaps it was something involving whipped cream and a banana. However, the facts remain that 4 men who claim to be heterosexual would happily meet and have a sexual experience with someone they have never seen and wouldn't notice their sex partner was a bald man with a beard. Perhaps these were married men who decided to have homosexual affairs and then later were worried their wives would find out, so had to come up with a good cover story. Note that just a few years ago in Britain, I think it was just over a year ago, a similar case happened in reverse, involving a young woman, college student, Gayle Newland. Gayle Newland made online contact using a dating profile claiming to be a man. They arranged that they would meet, and the victim agreed to voluntarily wear a blindfold during the entire encounter, including before they ever met for the first time. They had many encounters over about 18 months, including going out for drives in the car together and watching movies, all while the alleged victim consented to remain blindfold. Now, the article does not make it clear, but it seems fair to assume that Gayle Newland was the person driving and that she was not wearing a blindfold at the time. We just have to assume that. It seems to me that this whole story just doesn't pass the smell test. It is bullshit. They engaged in many dates, including penetrative sex, over an 18-month period. Indeed, they met up over 100 times in all. On every occasion, the victim agreed to wear a blindfold and have only limited contact with the other person. They were never forced to wear a blindfold. There was no gun, no knife. One person simply asked the other person in advance of the date, "If we are going to meet on a date, then I want you to wear a blindfold." And the other person said, "Okay." Sorry, mate. To me, that sounds like consent. It's claimed that some kind of artificial sex toy penis substitute was used, and the victim, despite being sexually experienced with men, never noticed that she was having sexual activity with another woman, and not the man as depicted in the online dating profile photograph. After being in this relationship of occasional dates over an 18-month period, one day the woman simply removed her blindfold, an option that had been available to her at any time previously, including right from the very first time they met. Suddenly she realised she was having sex with a woman and got all upset and called the coppers, crying rape. Now in that case, the female perpetrator also got a prison sentence, 8 years. This was overturned on appeal and a new trial ordered. Gayle Newland was again found guilty by a jury of mentally defective dog turds, apparently. Now, while not condoning the activities of Duarte Xavier or Gayle Newland, it is worth noting that all 5 victims, in both cases mentioned above, voluntarily wore blindfolds and could have removed them at any time should they have chosen to, including at the beginning of their very first date when they first met. I hope that Duarte Xavier lodges an appeal and gets found not guilty of all offences at a retrial. Yeah, he's a bit of a scumbag and should have his Tinder and online dating profiles cancelled for breaching the terms of use of those websites, but he certainly doesn't deserve 15 years in jail just because his date partners chose to wear blindfolds. Let us get one thing perfectly clear. In the 2 separate cases detailed above, all 4 men and 1 woman, the so-called victims, consented to have sex, but made a free choice to not look at their sex partner beforehand. So what if later they didn't 100% match their online dating profile picture? Then whoopee-doo. Be a bit of a grown-up about it. Pissy crybabies, the lot of them. Court cases like these, against Duarte Xavier and Gayle Newland, devalue what real victims of sexual assault and rape go through. And here is a link on my blog. Here is a link to the Daily Mail newspaper's website article by Richard Spillett regarding the Duarte Xavier case, and below that, of the case of Gayle Newland. I will try to include those as clickable links if I can at the end of the video, in the description. Ultimately, and in closing, after her second trial, Gayle Newland got a 6-year jail sentence after being found guilty at the second trial. She was also sentenced to a further 6 months in jail for unrelated fraud charges relating to overbilling a previous employer on some contract work. Note that Gayle had been previously employed to deliberately post dubious materials online. Although as that employer's normal job was being engaged in shonky, barely legal online falsification practices themselves, it seems to me that perhaps the court decision got it wrong on that count as well. Is our video thing going to change? So that's the piece. As I said, I'll try to include links in the description. This is Catherine, Christchurch, New Zealand. There we go. Alright folks, I'll get this video online, eh? Cheers. Oh, but hey, before I go, let me know what you think in the comments, eh? Yeah, click on the original links. Do go and read those original stories. And if you research those names, Duarte Xavier and Gayle Newland, you'll come up with some other stories. You know, other British papers covered it. So, but I don't know what reporters were in the newsroom at the time. Several of the media accounts just seem to be copied off of other media accounts, which you could argue is what I've done here. But I wasn't in the court at the time. This is Catherine, signing off. Cheerio.